Hello, I'm Ed Frawley. For those of you who don't know, I own Leerburg. We have another question here that came in as an email. We get a lot of emails on a daily basis. We answer them all in a timely fashion, and we pick some that we think are interesting to feature in our newsletter, and this is a pretty good one. This individual owns a golden retriever and lives in New York City, has been through a number of dog trainers, has looked at some of our DVDs, and his problem is loose leash walking. And I think it's probably better for me to read the email, then we're going to talk about it. I've used several of your DVDs for training and really like the stuff. That's great. I have an 18-month-old golden and I live in New York City. Using your advice, I managed to train him pretty much everything except loose leash walking. And I've spent months on this alone with trainers. I have 100% recall on and off leash if I'm not walking. He has all of his basic obedience. The moment I put the leash on to take him for a walk or run, it's like I get a new dog. While he will heel off leash and pay attention to me, on leash he starts pulling and sniffing the ground. He doesn't pay attention to me or trainers I've worked with in the past. No interest in treats, including raw meat. It's almost as if he intentionally ignores all the commands he otherwise knows. Several trainers gave up, and I'm now hesitant to waste money on more. I've tried harnesses, and after pulling so much with one of the Easy Walk harnesses, he developed bruises. What am I going to do, and what am I doing wrong? Is an e-collar the next step in this problem? Mike, I don't think the e-collar is the next step. Without being there, looking at your dog, I'd like to see the interaction with your dog, with how he can go from heeling off leash to pulling and sniffing the ground when it's on leash. A lot of times, sniffing the ground is an indication of stress. So I would wonder if the dog is stressed when he goes on leash. I'd like to know what you did to him before and during the training that would cause him to pull like this. I think if it was my dog, quite frankly, I would put a prong collar on him, and it would be one of the small link prong collars, not one of the large ones, and I'd have him wear a dominant dog collar. And I would use a prong collar leash, because prong collars come apart, and they always come apart at the worst time, at a time when you're giving them a correction for a distraction. And you don't want to have a dog off leash at that point. They come apart more often when trainers don't put them on correctly. And we have an article on our prob collar page that shows exactly how to fit them and how to put them on. But use these small prong collars because they take less pressure to change the dog's behavior. And if the dog doesn't have good food drive, I would first determine if I'm training when he's hungry. Take him out and figure out when are the times that you would normally feed the dog. If you feed him, say, at 8 o'clock in the morning and 5:30 at night, then try training at 7:15 and 4:30 at night, or whatever fits your schedule. If your dog's not hungry, there's a lot of things you can do to make him more hungry. I mean, we want to change the environment or the mental attitude of this dog. So let him go for a day or 2 days without food. Going 2 days or 48 hours without food is not going to hurt the dog. You have to let him have water, but you don't have to feed him for 2 days. And I will guarantee you, after 2 days, if you take him out, he's going to show an interest in food. I would question you and ask you if you were training this dog with marker training. I have a long article on my website on markers, leerburg.com/markers.htm. I think the last time I printed it out, it was something like 25 pages. Train your dog with markers. Find out what you have to do to get your dog more interested in food. Go to a higher value food. Maybe some dogs don't like raw hamburger. I mean, we have one of our dogs that would die for a little bitty piece of cheese, but really doesn't care too much about hamburger. So it's your job to kind of experiment around and see what your dog thinks is a high-value food reward. People email us all the time and say, what should I use for a high-value food reward for my dog? And I say, I have no idea. I have no idea. Because we have 3 dogs that we train, and all 3 of them have different high-value food rewards. Do some experimenting. It's your job to find out what a high-value food treat is. Maybe it's how you handle your food, too. I mean, what you want and what we want is a dog that's engaged with us. Simply handing a dog a piece of food isn't very exciting. We do food games with our dogs. We take the food, we toss it, we encourage them, we use marker training, we focus on engagement. What is engagement? It's when our dog's focused on us, looks at our face, wants what we have, and what we have is either a high-value food reward or a toy, his favorite toy. But when we're working with food and the dog is hungry and we have the high-value food reward, the next step is to take the dog out and play food games with him. Move his feet. When you mark a behavior, make him move. Turn, as my friend Michael Ellis says, turn your reward into an event. Don't just hand him a piece of food. So many times you see people hand a dog a piece of food, then the dog says, oh, that's good. I got my food. I'm going to look around. Something over there is kind of interesting. No, don't do that. Jackpot the dog. Give him a piece of food. Give him another piece of food. Give him another piece of food. Don't let him know that he gets 3 pieces of food or 5 pieces of food or 2 pieces of food. Random amounts of jackpotting maintains the dog's interest and engagement with you. Tossing the food. Make the dog chase it. Teach the lure. Let the dog lure away. Step away from the dog. Let him follow it and reward him that way. I guess I would say, if it was my dog, I'd take him through the program, The Power of Training Dogs with Food, that I did with Michael. I would also take him through The Power of Playing Tug with your dog. Because, not knowing your dog, and you didn't say anything about toys, if you can teach your dog the rules of play, and the rules of play are, the dog has to enjoy playing with vigor, he has to bring the toy back when I call it, and he has to out the toy when I ask him to out it. And if he does all those things, then I can maybe use a toy, his high-value toy, when I'm walking. And maybe what you might want to do is put the dog on a prong collar. I wouldn't start off correcting him. Let him self-correct into the collar. And if he really, really likes a toy, give it to him. Let him carry it. Take his mind off of the possibility of, if you've corrected him in the past, the possibility of correcting him. Back to food, keep your high-value food rewards in a treat bag on your hip. When the dog goes to the end of the line, stop. Call him back to you, reward, jackpot, reward, jackpot, and you go on. And when he hits the end of the leash, stop. Call him back to you, reward, jackpot, toss it, reward. Start walking again. Hits the end of the leash, stop. So you have to set your own criteria with your dog on what you're prepared to do with that dog. I'm not going to sit here and say, put a prong collar on and jerk him off his feet. That's old school training, and I think you need to figure out if you can do this motivationally first, with your high-value food rewards, with your dog's favorite toy, if he knows the rules of play, and then go from there. Corrections are the last step to take. Correcting a dog with a prong collar is the last step to take. Once the dog knows all of the behaviors that you want him to know, and you're then going to go to off-leash work, that's when you bring in a remote collar. I've said this, and I say it whenever I'm talking about remote collars. Remote collar is the best training tool that's ever been devised. It's the worst training tool that's ever been abused. The most abused training tool that's ever been invented. So, if you use the remote collar the way we show in the 3 DVDs that we've done, it establishes reliability in off-leash control work with low-level stimulation. And the levels of stimulation that we use, oftentimes humans can't even feel, or if they do feel it, it's a slight tingle. So I wouldn't put a remote collar on your dog and take him out and try and teach him to walk slowly in loose leash heeling. I just wouldn't do it. In a short period of time, we are going to release an online course on basic dog obedience. And depending upon when you watch that video, it's going to be out in 2004. When you watch this video, it's going to be out in 2014. And within that course, I taught the course, I'm covering three ways of walking with your dog. The first is competition heeling. I'm not teaching that, but I'm going to show people what competition heeling is. And that is they walk next to your leg with their shoulder next to your knee, and they look up into your face. That is not how we take our dogs out for a walk. I'm showing it in the video so people understand, because unfortunately new dog trainers think that's how you're supposed to take your dog for a walk, and it's not. No dog can walk for 5 or 6 blocks in competition heeling. We're teaching loose leash walking in the online course, and I'm going to teach controlled walking. And what is controlled walking? Similar to, but not the same as competition heeling. In controlled walking, the dog walks next to us and he leans into my knee. He can look wherever he wants. Competition heeling, he looks in your eyes. In controlled walking, he can look ahead, he can look over here, it doesn't matter. But he has to keep his shoulder on my left knee. And we use that when we are in a position of high distraction for the dog. We have a bike trail here in town. When we're walking on the bike trail, in loose leash walking, because our dogs are always on a leash, and we are going to pass other people or other people with dogs, or we're going to have bikes that are going by us, we ask our dogs to walk. That's the command we use, and they have to put their leg or their shoulder on our leg. And they can look at the other people, they can look at the other dog, but they can't take their shoulder off our knee. So that's what's in the online course, if you think that's something that would help you. I hope I answered your question.